Run.
Wow, that was pretty good. Actually, that was very good. This video certainly aged poorly in given its title, not because it's bad. No, not at all. Because this movie just tops it in everything. Animation, characters, the story, the intensity, stakes, major stakes actually. But I'll keep the title because I did stay true to that for a pretty long time, and the video was released before I saw Across the Spider-Verse, so yeah.
If I have web on my face, what's the deal?
As for this one, it'll probably be called Across the Spider-Verse, a beautiful masterpiece, because that's what the film is. I had high expectations going to this film, understandably so, because the first one was a kick-ass ride. With a character I personally related to with a meaningful story behind him. A boy reeled into this unusual world of what it means to be a hero and learn to get the better of his fears and misfortunes.
I'm Spider-Man.
Sony did plan 2 more films after Into the Spider-Verse given its success, so we are getting a full-blown trilogy, Beyond the Spider-Verse releasing next year in March. As for Across the Spider-Verse, my expectations were exceeded by Chris Miller and Phil Lord and David Callahan for creating an engaging story, which puts all of our characters into question if risking one person's life to save millions can be avoided and have the possibility of doing both. The film plays around with this intention and how there's dire consequences of both. It's a nice approach and certainly raises stakes for Miles, as he's no longer fighting an internal battle of becoming a hero for his city, but fighting his close friends to do what he believes is possible without suffering potential catastrophic consequences, with little truth backing those said consequences. This is the biggest question in this film, and well, let's see how well the story frolics with this piece. The film starts with Gwen Stacy's story. They delve more into her struggle of moving on from her biggest tragedy in her life, the death of her friend Peter Parker. In an incident where Peter is being tyrannized by one of the school's biggest bullies, he takes his fate to a different turn when he drinks a hazardous liquid, turning him into a vicious monster. One party night, he attacks the school in an attempt to harm the bully until Gwen interferes, causing a fight unaware of the person behind the mask, resulting in a massive collapse of the building, killing Peter in the process, who simply wanted to be someone special.
Wanted to be special. Like you. When?
In an unfortunate scene where can be best described as this is not what it looks like, her own father rushes to the scene and suspects Spider-Gwen is the murderer of Peter Parker, when simply it isn't the case. After the ill-fated chain of events, the entire police force is after her, which puts Gwen in a tough situation mentally, as not only does she have to battle the loss of her friend, but cannot express who Spider-Gwen is underneath the mask, even remotely defend herself, and the actions that which took place that very night. Vulture, one that's not part of Gwen's world, is causing havoc at an art museum, and has no clue of the circumstances he's in. In a very prolonged fight with many remarks being dished at each other like it was an insult war, Vulture has her in his clutches, until... From the help of Miguel and Spider-Woman, Vulture is detained in an attempt to send him back to his original world. Gwen, battered and beaten, is confronted by her father and nowhere to run. She finally has to resort to unmasking herself in an attempt to even with the slightest chance make her father understand, disclosing that whatever happened to Peter that day was all a hapless accident. In a very moving scene, you can see the fear and the conflict in Captain Stacy's eyes.
I didn't know it was him. I didn't have a
How
choice.
long have you been lying to me?
But he unhappily resorts to the cop which resides in himself and begins to command Gwen and plays it by the book. He's afraid of his own daughter, which is prematurely carried by his hate for the character of Spider-Gwen and the death of his daughter's best friend. Probably in the heat of the moment and has no clue on if he should be a father or a cop. With his gun pointed at his own daughter, he's immediately confined in a bubble by Miguel. As for Gwen, she tags along with Miguel and Spider-Woman to help fix the many anomalies the collider has caused on different worlds. So let's catch up on our buddy Miles. He's a charismatic fella protecting Brooklyn. He's having fun stopping criminals, not too much fun where he's stopping for handshakes. Until a walking slender man with holes, Spot, barges into the convenience store stealing from an ATM. Miles, while eating his Hot Pocket, confronts Spot. The two converse and we learn Spot is a human stuck in this very form. A curse, you can say. He's a freak amongst many and can barely function around society, hence why he's resorting to robbing convenience stores in order to survive. The two collide in a teleportation fight, Miles not taking him seriously, texting his dad on his whereabouts, which seamlessly triggers Spot. In a pent of rage, he screams with a distorted voice that Miles is the reason he is living in a void of nothingness, and how he himself is responsible for Miles being Spider-Man. And it all began from a bagel, by the way.
Just like I told you.
Their conflict progressed later with a confrontation with Kingpin and the explosion of the collider, which forced Dr. On into this black hole, creating him into the villain of the week. In Miles' case though, when Kingpin and his team of scientists were running tests for the collider, Dr. Ock brought in Spider-42, which escaped and bit Miles, making him Spider-Man. Spot is tired of being considered as a joke and not an actual threat to Miles. He wants to be his most powerful nemesis, so in a lunge attempt he kicks his own ass, engulfing himself surrounded by various portals. He plays the hypothesis game with these portals visiting many different distinctive worlds, like stopping by Mrs. Chen's convenience store.
What do you want?
I'm robbing you because I'm a bad guy.
I have a parasite. Yeah. Name is Chen.
He constructs a plan based on his theories, which would make him no longer the villain of the week, but an opposing threat to the entire multiverse. Heading back to Miles' life, his father is being promoted to captain, which actually plays an important part later in the story. He hosts a party on the roof, but there is a bit of disconnect between Miles and his own parents. He can't tell them the truth of who he is outside of his house, out of the fear of not being accepted by them, but this is a hurdle that is raising questions for both him and his parents. After failing to be on time for his father's celebration of being captain, Miles is grounded and chills in his room where he meets Gwen Stacy once again. The two catch up on what their lives have been like for the past 2 years or so. Gwen being forbidden to meeting one of her close friends, her and Miles stroll around the city. Gwen telling Miles about the Spider Society and all the cool variations she's met for the past month or so. Although Gwen is thrilled to see Miles, she's also on a very important mission to keep track of Spot, who's in the process of creating a device which will transport him to various colliders across the multiverse.
That's the thing. I need more spots!
Gwen receiving this alert has to leave Miles without telling him the reasoning behind the sudden dropout.
Shoot, I have to go.
Really?
Yeah, I forgot to get my steps in.
It's revealed he's on his way to Mubaten, his last stop to become something more sinister. Spider-Woman calls in on Gwen to let go of Miles and finish the mission. This hurts Gwen on the inside as she has to let go of another friend in her life. A big decision given the fact that she lost Peter in her own world through an accidental confrontation, and had to run from her own dad being a cop and not a father towards her, suspecting that she is the murderer of Peter Parker. And now once she's found someone again, someone close, she must let go for the sake of the multiverse. But Miles follows her into a portal and they meet Spider-Man Bob Deere, who gives a rundown of his own life, a pretty entertaining one as well.
Chai means D, bro. You're saying DD.
I love the distinctive personality each Spider-Man possesses. A great job from the animators and writers for making that possible. The three try to chase down Spot, who immediately has hold of the device. A barrier blocking the three Spider-Men from entering until Spider-Punk, or Hobie, who's a real homie later in the film because of an action he takes, he breaks the barrier, but the four Spider-Men aren't able to stop Spot, who pretty much becomes a walking multiverse teleportation device. Mega Spot, let's call him that. His lust to become the biggest villain, he sends a chilling threat to destroy Miles' life, not physically but emotionally.
I'm gonna take everything from you, like you took everything from me.
The activation of the device caused the building to collapse on top of a bridge. The Spider-Man work together to save as many as they can, but Gwen receives a message that a canon event is about to occur. Puff there, struggling to pull a bus up, noticed the Inspector Singh, figuratively speaking, is about to have his life crushed out of him. Struggling to do both, but Miles, who senses the Inspector is in trouble, lunges forward and saves the child and Mr. Singh. This action causes an anomaly in Mubaten, which the Spider Society tries to contain before it becomes a serious threat to that very world. Miles doesn't obviously understand these anomalies or why they're so important to the Spider Society, but once he tags along and enters their headquarters, he meets Miguel, the leader of the whole operation. He explains how the Spider-Verse is important for all Spider-Men. Every Spider-Man's lives are connected in a giant web, but when you disrupt the canon, that very world crumbles and the web breaks. Or to paraphrase Miguel's words, save enough captains, break enough cannons, the web that connects all Spider-Men will simply collapse before our eyes. Miguel obviously fuming at Miles' actions, which disrupted the multiverse and creating another hole in which now he has to patch before further damage is done. But Peter B. Parker interferes in the conversation, and he has a kid now named Mayday, who also possesses special spider abilities. Peter is no longer the crying in the shower eating pizza depressed Spider-Man. He's become a fearless and happy father and a complete enhanced version of this character from Into the Spider-Verse. When all things seem gloomy, Miguel reveals to Miles that his father is about to be crushed very soon. This ultimately triggers Miles' vision of Spot terrorizing Brooklyn and leading his father heroically sacrificing himself. Miguel begs Miles to listen and cooperate, as he's not asking but commanding Miles to stay put. He traps Miles in a bubble and an argument breaks out on how Miguel is being too aggressive and not taking it easy on the kid. Hobie, who said is a real homie, teaches Miles on how to break free from the bubble. A nice callback to Mubaten when he was teaching the right hand placement when breaking the barrier.
Advice: use the palm, not just your fingers.
Out of anger, Miles breaks loose and now 200-something Spider-Men are after him. There's a cat Spider-Man and a T-Rex Spider-Man, which I have a question on what's his canon event. A meteorite probably killed his uncle T-Rex Ben or something, I don't know. Back on track, Peter tries to go easy on Miles. He wants to help him. He expresses how much Miles has changed his life. Nice seeing their bond progress from a struggling mentor and student relationship to a fully fledged connection when neither are hesitant to express themselves and their fears. On the plus side, Peter isn't even afraid to be a mentor towards Miles anymore. This is actually very cohesive to his character. I just want to point out there are complaints for this Peter for endangering Mayday. When I have a few points to rebuttal this claim, Peter is very self-aware of the dangers around him. Spider Society is far from a dangerous place given it's a safe haven for all Spider-Men, so no danger for her there. The animators do a great job showing even when he is in a predicament with Mayday, Peter covers her to avoid any threat on her life. In retrospect to the train scene, second last point is Miles opposes no threat to Mayday whatsoever. He even offers Miles to hold the baby for reassurance. Miles is the reason Mayday exists in the first place. Peter wants Mayday to be like Miles was to him, because Miles is a great kid and even admits that what he is doing is probably bad parenting, but he wants to keep Mayday as close as possible so he can keep an eye on her.
You're the reason I had her, okay? I thought that if I did a decent job raising her, that there was a chance she was gonna turn out like you. Because you are a wonderful person.
Last point, Mayday literally has special abilities. She literally climbs walls in the film and she isn't a regular baby where she has no way of even protecting herself. And Peter is aware of this. Alright, back to the story. As for Miguel, he will stop at nothing till Miles is locked up, changing a forthcoming event and cause mayhem to the multiverse. Dude is a flippin' menace in this film and cold. He says it like it is and doesn't care if it's a kid, he's broken to the core. He reveals how Miles is the original anomaly. The spider that bit him was from Earth 42, not his. That world is suffering with no Spider-Man. Miles was simply a mistake according to Miguel.
You're the original anomaly. A mistake. If you hadn't been bit, your Peter Parker would have lived.
You don't belong here. You never did.
What makes it worse is that Peter and Gwen knew about it and never told him. Miles though escapes from his clutches and enters an unfamiliar world. Meanwhile, Gwen, who's now reconciled with their father, repairing the burnt bridge in their relationship. After receiving a gift from Hobie, she immediately goes to Miles Morales' dimension, but doesn't spot him at all, and Miles himself is beginning to glitch at Earth 42. He's in the wrong dimension, as Uncle Aaron, who should be dead according to Miles' dimension, is walking around like nothing happened, and the idea of Spider-Man is laughable according to his mom. Aaron notices it's not his Miles, and while Earth 42 Miles knocks the fuck out of Earth 1610 Miles. A chilling imagery where the two Miles face one another. One is a hero from a different world, the other is a villain from his. Gwen registers what has transpired and assembles her own band to find Miles and bring him home. It's always troubling hearing a sequel is being made of the unpleasant premonition of the writers missing what made the original special, and panicking resulting in missing the mark entirely. A few films that I've personally seen in which topped their original predecessors were The Dark Knight,
No, there's only minutes left, so you're gonna have to play my little game if you want to save one of them.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Empire Strikes Back,
What are you doing? Trust him!
Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers,
Ride out and meet them.
and I can say with the whole heart that Across the Spider-Verse joins this family. The team behind the film elevated every aspect to different heights. It's a complete upgrade, whether it's a worthy antagonist, my biggest complaint from the last one by the way, story, huge stakes with threatening consequences, and the animation obviously. Not once did I fall apart or break away from the film. Across the Spider-Verse absorbs you into the world of sacrifices one must take to become Spider-Man, or a hero in general. One versus all or both. This is a big dilemma and it's the driving force for our characters. One believes differently from the other, creating an interesting conflict where you see the faults of each perspective. Miguel being that worthy antagonist for Miles in the film but isn't his biggest obstacle. I get more into that later. Miguel challenges everything Miles strives for. He believes there's a clear answer in saving one versus all scenario, while Miles believes you can do both. Film clearly establishes Miguel as a broken man who got too selfish and caused millions to die in front of his eyes. He played with the multiverse and found a world where he was happy and had a family. All seemed to be going well until one unfortunate event changed him completely, mentally and physically. His world crumbled beneath him and in his hands.
Because I broke it once myself. I found another world where I had a family, where I was happy. I thought it was harmless. But I was wrong.
This was a traumatic event for him. He simply wanted happiness, and in the end, that very happiness disappeared in front of his own eyes and turned him into a cold, fragmented version of himself. These actions forced him to create a spider society of those who validate his theory and algorithm to help him prevent such a catastrophic event on other worlds. The writers gave Miguel an actual strong argument to his plan and motivation, where you see a bit of his side on the light of things and see why he despises Miles despite some loose connections in his conclusion. His ambition to take hold of Miles before any further damage is done is in retrospect that Miles was the original cause of everything. Created Spot, created multiple holes in the multiverse.
Stop the collider before it ever went off. Spot wouldn't exist, and none of this would have happened. And all this time, I have been the only one holding it all together.
He's the original anomaly. You experience his aggression and understand his intention. It's crazy how Into Spider-Verse, despite a minimal presence in the end credits, he had the humor, he had the charisma of Spider-Man. But all that disappeared in him the moment he lost it all. He explains to Miles canons must be played out. These painful events are what shaped Spider-Man to their fullest.
You break enough cannons, save enough captains, and we could lose everything.
He sees himself as a hero that he's doing good, sacrifices what he signed up for. It's what every Spider-Man signed up for. He sacrificed everything to keep things in order, cause he's simply a Spider-Man that doesn't want to fracture the multiverse and lose it all again.
You can't have it all, kid.
Miles, all grown up, stopping villains of the weak, being the hero Brooklyn needs. Although he's loving what he's doing, the struggles of being Spider-Man come into fruition. He has to protect his own identity and lie to his own parents, afraid of not being accepted for who he is. Many instances where he wants to speak but draws out when he knows there's a possible chance of a negative reaction from them. He gets into many arguments with his parents in the film and knows they love him and want what's best for him, but they can't know the truth about the boy outside of his home. Otherwise, there can be frightful consequences. Miles speaks so highly how much he wants to create a technology that's possible traveling dimensions using quantum physics. He misses the band from the Into Spider-Verse and wants to learn from them and applying to his own world to be better. That's his sole purpose of wanting to go to Princeton, but all these dreams and choices hit a wall when meeting Miguel, learning his own father is about to die in 2 days according to the algorithm, and how he simply has to allow that to happen, otherwise worlds might collapse. He fights Miguel's theory on how unthinkable it is to take such actions.
You realize how messed up that sounds, right?
Peter, although is torn between the two ideologies, argues that bad things happen to structure who we are at our fullest. The difference is those instances happen to other Spider-Men out of the blue, unaware they were supposed to happen, except for Gwen, who's expecting the death of her father, but she has accepted that fate. As for Miles, he knows what's coming. It's his own freaking dad who's about to die. Clearly, Miguel's aggression to the idea didn't work, as Miles won't allow his story to play out like the rest, and will make his own story where he can do both. Shit does hit the fan, and when he enters the wrong dimension and he meets himself, the Miles Morales that was supposed to get bitten and be Earth's 42 Spider-Man. But nope, he became Uncle Aaron's apprentice and pretty much Prowler Jr. While he's in a tight situation, literally, Spot has arrived to Earth 1610 to destroy Miles Morales' life.
I'm gonna take everything from you, like you took everything from me.
Into the Spider-Verse had an entire team which we had brief glimpses to their story, but Across the Spider-Verse takes it a whole new level and provides unique storytelling to supporting characters. Gwen Stacy's story is what started this film off. The loss of her friend and becoming her own father's enemy, Gwen wants to be the best hero she can, but the pain of not saving everyone she loves takes a toll. She explains to her father how she's all alone. She tries so hard to save everyone, the people she cares about, but can't do it all on her own. Her journey is about finding her place, finding the people she can trust. Is why she joined Spider Society, to bring better of the universe and learning of the whole canon theory. She sides with Miguel and his ambition to keeping the multiverse intact and allowing canon events to play out. It's a very fucked up thought. Imagine knowing someone is going to die and you have the power to save them, knowing what's about to occur and isn't something out of the blue, but millions of lives are at stake, so you can't. Jeez. As Miguel's anger and aggression hits the highest point, she questions who to trust, who to believe, until she learns that her father quit the Force and no longer is the captain. She finds there's a possibility that because Miles is an anomaly, he's able to save his father without disrupting the canon, as her own father lived from quitting the Force. Realizing the flaw in Miguel's theory, not all sacrifices need to happen, hence why Captain Stacy didn't get crushed in her own dimension, she assembles her own band, something she always wanted, and rescue Miles from Earth 42.
I'm Miles Morales.
Fucking Captain Stacy, who has minimal presence in the film, gets a very compelling character arc. The film established how he plays it by the book. He loves his job and loves putting on the uniform and hat. And once his daughter is revealed to be the supposed murderer of Peter Parker, his cop instincts kick in to arrest his own daughter out of fear. Luckily for her, thanks to Miguel, she got out, but the remaining months he looked himself in the mirror and went through self-improvement. When he meets his daughter after months of separation, he realized being a captain was driving him away from his best creation, his own daughter. Even Miles' parents get their own moments, especially the mom. The first film was mainly his relationship with his dad wanting the best out of that very spark. But realizing it was too hard on that spark, he encouraged Miles to be himself and strive for ambitions he desires. Across the Spider-Verse, his mom gets much more screen time. She's like what all moms fear, having their child grow up too quickly and moving further apart as their life goes on. That's her fear. Miles spending most of his time not at home worries her. Seeing Miles hanging out with the girl he likes worries her. When both her and Miles converse about life in a sense, she realizes it's time for her to grow as well. Allow Miles to spread his wings, but just remember to bring her a cake when he gets home.
Just don't get lost.
Yeah.
¿Me oyes?
Alright.
Miguel was a simple meteorite in Miles' life, but you can consider Spot to be an entire fucking asteroid. Spot is presented as this goofy villain, and if you thought while watching and thinking it's one of those Marvel goofy type villain tropes, boy you're wrong. Spot wanted to be Miles' biggest arch nemesis and took it to lengths to achieve that. Spot was mainly present at the start to set up his big plan in preparation for Beyond the Spider-Verse, cause he is the big bad. But what a clever way to set him up. A complete curveball from being goofy to having clear motivations and becoming the most uncomfortable and creepy, in a good way, villain I've seen in animation. Rivals Death himself in my honest opinion.
I'm deaf. Straight up.
The film was batshit crazy, everything felt immersive, the score was uptight, the characters weren't made out of hollow wood and had purpose. On a related note, Across the Spider-Verse treated the multiverse with so much care and thought into it, much better than No Way Home.
Watch this. Do you know Peter Parker who's Spider-Man?
Yes.
Is that him?
No.
See?
Each character stayed in character with reasonable flaws to move the plot. No character was assassinated for the sake of progression. The only nitpick I have, there's instances where Miles runs around places jeopardizing his identity. And the reason I say it's a nitpick, because 1, it doesn't even take up 10 seconds of screen time. 2, it has no effect and does not jeopardize the plot of the film. That's pretty much it actually. It's gonna be hard for Beyond the Spider-Verse to even top this one. All I hope is Sony takes their time on telling a meaningful story to what possibly could be the best comic book movie trilogy, and one of the best animated trilogies of all time. So yeah, goodbye.